Hi, in this tutorial, we are going to implement linear regression in R. So we are going to implement the linear regression machine learning model in R. So we have already discussed briefly about what exactly is linear regression. We have discussed cost function and gradient descent. So now let's get started. So there are some steps in this tutorial. First of all, we will download R or R Studio. I will show you from where you can download it. Then you will have to install and import libraries. So basically there are some libraries in R which gives us some important features that we can use to perform linear regression. The third step is to load a dataset, which is a housing prices.csv file. I will give the link to this file, which is housing prices.csv. It is a dataset and I will give the link in the description below. You can check it out. So we will load that dataset in our RStudio. Then we will build a linear regression model. Now we are going to use a predefined function. We have an inbuilt function in R which can be used to build a linear regression model. Then finally we are going to plot the linear regression model on the graph and we will then start our predicting. So now let's get started with RStudio and let's see how we can perform the operations to do the linear regression work. So first of all, you will have to go on the browser and type here download R. So when you will go on here, you can see there is a link here in the first link which is download R 4.0.0 for Windows. You can go here and you can download the .exe file from here. You can see that it will actually redirect you to the, you can see this link here, download R4. Just click here and you can download the .exe file and run it. And basically it will create a R it will create a development environment for you where we can actually write the script. But I will strongly suggest you to use this IDE, which is the RStudio. So download RStudio for Windows. Remember, first you will have to install R. It will install all the tools related to R, and then you can install the RStudio. And here, if you will click here, it will show you some benefits of R also, some RStudio desktop and some versions. Just choose the RStudio desktop free version, download it from here. Right, you can also download it from here. And you can see it also shows the steps that first it requires R. You will have to install R and then you will have to install the RStudio. So after installing the RStudio and installing R, you will see a screen something like this. And what we have to do is, now what you can do is just go on new project. Let's create a new R project. I will write R project here. So let's name this project as housing prices linear, right? Since we are doing linear regression, and click on create project. So now it will create a project for us. You can see it will create a console, and if you will click here, it will open up an untitled one, right? So just save it as hello.r, just save it, and now you will be able to write some scripts here. But most of the work that we are going to do, we are going to do it in console. Now the benefit of using RStudio is that you will be able to see the some variables here. You will be able to see plots here and packages which are there inside your R, and there are a lot of things that you can actually see from here. So there are advantages of using RStudio. Alright, so let's move on to our next step, which is to load the dataset. Now I have given the link to the dataset in the description. What you just need to do is go on file, and here is an import dataset. and here you can see some options. We will click on from text base. If you will click here, it will open up. You can see it will open up our file explorer. So I'm just going to locate. Alright, so we have this CSV file, housing prices. Just open it and you can see it will show you a dialog box like this, which shows the data frame and the input file. This is our input file, and it has seen it has just, you can see, this is the way our file will look like. It has area, it has price, and this is just the ID. So just click on import. Now after clicking on import, you will be able to see that here it has opened the housing prices, which has area and price. Now I have deliberately chosen a data set which will be able to give where we can actually perform linear regression. So I've deliberately chosen this type of a data set. So after importing this data set, you will see that in the environment tab, if you can see here, there is a new selection which is housing prices, and it says we have 498 observations of 3 variables. And if we double click here, we can see that there are 3 variables: x, area, and price, and there are 498 records of this. Alright, so now we have successfully done our loading of the data set which is of housing prices. The next step is to plot the data in the graph. So let's just try to plot this data. Just plot the data of housing prices. I will go on the console, and if you want to plot something, you will have to use the plot function, and you can see it shows me plot, and it also has a very good, you can see, documentation type. You can see here it is a generic function for plotting of our objects. Alright, so we're going to use this plot function. In the plot function, you will have to provide the x and the y axis. We are going to plot the points in a form of graph, and we know that a graph has x axis and a y axis. So in the y axis, we have the price. So I will write price here. Then I will use this operator here. You can see this operator. This is just on the on the right hand side of the one number. You can see this operator here. The price is actually here. You can see in the data set that price is actually y, and on the x axis we have area. So I'm going to now write area. So now we are going to plot this. Now we will have to provide it with the data. So data equals, the data is the housing prices. Now remember, if you haven't loaded housing prices and it is not showing in the environment, here it will not be able to understand what exactly housing prices is. So here I will just click enter, and now you can see in the plots tab, it will plot all the points which we have in the housing prices data into this graph. And you can see this is a price on the y-axis, and on the x-axis we have the area. Alright, so we have done something very cool here. We have plotted the graph. Now what we just need to do is we need to do linear regression and find and plot a line here which will best fit my dataset. So let's see how we can do that. So the next step is to build a model, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable L underscore model, which is basically our linear model. So let me just clean this up. Now you can see here L model, and in this variable I will use this operator. This operator is used to push something into this variable, right? We don't use equals operator in R, we use this operator. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of a built-in function which is lm, right? So if you will just type lm, you can see it shows the that this is the syntax of the lm function, and lm function is basically used, it is an inbuilt function, it is used to build our linear model. So what do we need to provide in this function? First of all, we need to provide the y-axis versus the x-axis. Again, we are going to use the same operator here. You can see this operator, and then again we will provide the data, which is the housing prices. Now what this line will do is it will build our linear model, and it will push all the details including the intercept, slope, and all the residual errors into this linear model, which is the L model variable, right? So let's see what happens. So after clicking enter, you can see here it has actually formed a, what do you say this, an environment variable, and this is a linear model which we can see here, and here you can see these are the details, coefficients, residuals, effects. So let's see what this linear model has. So we can use the summary function to actually see all the everything about this variable. So summary L model gives me this. You can see here that we have some intercept here. Estimate is 0.20427, something like this. We have area here, some standard errors, median, minimum, and maximum values are here. So it will just using the summary function, it will give you all the details that you require in the linear model or the linear regression, right? So the next step is that now we have built a L model, which is basically our linear model. Now our task is to plot this linear model on this graph, right? So we will have to plot the linear regression line. So for that, we have to do some overplotting. Overplotting means this is the graph and I want to plot a line on it. So it is known as overplotting if I am plotting some more things on a graph again and again. For that, we have to use a library known as ggplot library. So first what you have to do is you have to run this command install.packages, and inside this you will have to use quotation marks and you have to provide ggplot2, right? So this is the package that we need to install to plot a lot of things on the graph. So after clicking next, you will be able to install this package, and since I've already installed it, I'm not going to run this again. Now what you need to do is after installing, use the library function and just type ggplot2 here to import this uh, package in the environment, right? So if I click next, it will be able to load ggplot2 in the graph, sorry, in the environment. Now you can see here, if you go to packages here and if you will scroll down, you can see that ggplot2 is now selected. So instead of writing this, you can actually just check this, right? It will automatically do it for you. All right, so now we have the ggplot2 library. So let's use it to plot the linear regression line. So first of all, what I will do is I will create a variable which is a housing dot graph, and housing dot graph is actually the graph that will contain all these points plus the plotting of the line, right? So this is a variable and we're going to push the whole graph in this variable housing dot graph. We're going to use the ggplot function, and here you can see that this allows you to add your own methods for adding custom objects to a ggplot. All right, so in this function, let's see what we have to provide. The first parameter is to provide the data set, which is the housing prices. The second step is to use AES, and AES, you can see here, it is a aesthetic mapping and describes how variables in the data are mapped to visual properties or aesthetics of geomes. So geomes is basically the points that we are going to plot on this one on this graph, and aesthetic mappings are basically used to map or customize this whole graph. All right, so we are going to use this AES function. In this, we will provide x equals to area, comma y equals to price. All right, so now what we will do is we are going to plot all the points. So we are going to use GEOM underscore point, and you can see here this is the function that we're going to use, and what this function do is the point geom is used to create scatter plots. So basically these are the scatter plots, right? So we are going to use this. All right, so after I will hit enter, you can see it has created a new variable here, which is housing graph, right? We have a housing graph variable. So if I will try to plot this housing graph, so let's try to see this housing dot graph. If you will press enter, you can see now it has created a scatter plot, right? Just like the plot function, but now we are going to, since the plot function does not allow you to do the overplotting of a line and a scatter plots, that's the main reason why we are using ggplot. So after using this line, we can actually obtain a housing dot graph which will contain all the information that points to this whole graph. On the y-axis we have price, and here we have area. So now we have to plot the line, which is the linear regression model, and this ggplot allows me to do the overplotting. So let's plot the line here. So in order to plot the line, we will have to change our housing dot graph. We will make some changes to this graph. We will push some changes in this graph. So the graph will remain same, but we will add the line. So housing dot graph plus. So housing dot graph is this graph plus we are going to add the line, right? So we will use the GEOM underscore smooth function. You can see that this says that this function, if you're creating a new geom, position or scale in other package, you have to do this. So we will use this function to draw the line. So here I will just provide it with the parameter which is method equals to linear model, which is LM. You will have to provide this first parameter in this function geom smooth to push the line in the housing graph. The second one is the color, which I am going to initialize initially as let's initialize it with red, right? So what we're going to do is housing graph will remain same, which is this scatter plot will remain same, but we will push a red line of our linear model on this graph. So let's hit enter, and it will make some changes in the housing graph variable, right? So let's see what is our graph now. Let's see how our graph has changed. All right, so now you can see here we have the scatter plot as well as we have a red line here, which is of our linear model LM. We have used this geom smooth function to draw this line on the graph, and the color is red. So that's how we can perform linear regression in our studio, and in this manner we can actually plot the whole linear regression line on this graph. The last step which is still remaining is to make predictions, right? So what I am going to do is I'm going to choose a value of area, and then I will use my model to test what will be the value or what will be the price of the house with a specific area. Now we have an inbuilt function predict to do that. The first thing is to provide the linear model that we have trained before. You can see here we have trained our linear model. So I've cleared the console before, but we have built the L model. We have created a variable here. You can see this variable which contains all the information of our linear model. So we have actually built the linear model. Now we have to do the testing, right? We have trained our linear model. We have to now do the prediction. So in the predict method, the first thing is to provide the linear model, and the second step is to provide it with the new data, right? We are going to use data.frame function to provide it with new data. So the new data is the place where we are going to provide our area, right? So I want the area, let's say area equals to 5. So this means that after running this line, what I'm doing is I am in the prediction function, I'm saying that, okay, this is the linear model that we have trained. Now we have a new data frame, which is area is 5. So we have a house with, let's say, 5 square feet in area, somewhere around here. You can see that. And what we're trying to do is we are trying to predict the price at this point. On this line, we will just do the projection on the y-axis. All right, so let's hit enter. So now you can see that it has displayed 3.773398. So this means that if we have a house with area 5 square feet, the price is $3.77, which is somewhat around here. You can see in the graph also. So that's how we do the testing and training of a linear model. And that's how we plot a linear regression line on the RStudio. So that's all for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.